I'm Delia Codes, and welcome to my first Node project stream. I try to stream as much as I can of this project, warts and all. There are a few things in which you do not get to see, mostly having to do with setup that I think would be a little bit boring to you. Reading documentation, though I do read some documentation, of course, but any in-depth reading I usually do on my own. And let's see here. What do you get to see? What don't you get to see? You actually don't get to see. I'm part of a coding bootcamp, Thinkful, and so this is my Node capstone, and you don't get to see my mentor meetings. So last time, where were we last time? Last time we had a model. We had a failing test, and we had some questions about how to structure code. I had put code into a router.js, and I really wasn't sure if that's what I should be doing. And I was actually kind of not sure whether to use ExpressRouter or app.use or whatever to serve the things in my app. So what I discovered is this. So I discovered two things. One, app.use and router definitely do the same thing. Router provides you more control, like we had talked about, over the behavior of the route. App.use is a little more basic and essentially serves it. For my simple purposes right now, app.use is perfectly fine, and it doesn't necessarily need to be broken out immediately. I mean, the biggest thing about it is that it can get overwhelming when you break everything out immediately, and if you break everything out immediately and you don't have a ton of code, because it can be like, oh, this piece of code is here, this piece of code is here, this piece of code is here, blah blah blah. So in between the last session and this session, we consolidated our code into app.js, and kind of rewrote it to use app.use as opposed to router. Mostly because right now I don't need router. Later on it might be a good idea, and so there's some refactoring involved. And let's see here. What else? We fixed some of the MongoDB connection testing issues. However, I have another set. So that's interesting. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we can kind of talk about what's where we're at. Okay, so first, notice how all of my tests are running or passing. Huh? Notice they're running or passing? Amazing, right? Absolutely freaking amazing. So let's look at our code ship. Okay. Guess what? We have this lovely error that I've been trying to Google and figure out. Let's go node 779. Whatever. Oh, bother. It thinks it's a web address. Let's do that. Wow, how credit crises happen. Let's look at this. Okay, that is not my error at all. So as much as I would love to say, oh, this is amazing. Okay. And so I'm getting this unhandled promise rejection, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So my app is not deploying yet, as you can see. But it works fine on my machine. Right. So, okay. I've been kind of reading the Mongoose documentation, trying to figure out if there's anything in API. It was airing out. The only thing I can think of is that for some reason, like there's an issue with like this link or something. I don't know. Global DB. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that actually needs to be here anymore. Okay. So the only other thing, I tried to comment this out, and it did not work for fixing my problem. So we're going to save this, and we're going to commit it, restoring commented code. And I'm going to have to go to a Q&A and figure this out. So, that's kind of a thing. And okay, so the notes from my mentor meeting are essentially I need to focus on the business logic in your code. And I think that business logic needs to live inside of, I don't know where it needs to live necessarily, but I'm not sure if it matters where it lives exactly. Because, okay, so, see, because right now we have like a test that tests the status code, and that's pretty much it. And then we've got this, like, you know, that stuff. So let me look at my notes. Focus on business logic and then connection to database. And then use that store example. The idea is to... So let's see if we can find a weight in our code. And see if there's any awaits. The only awaits it looks like are in the DB test. So actually, let's comment out these awaits and see what happens. And I guess I could do a multi-cursor select, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. Okay, and then I'm not going to mess with the Mongo environment. Yet. I want to see if... And I could theoretically do it one at a time. And actually, before we commit this, let's make sure. So we've got our MongoD running. Okay. Everything passes still. So let's commit this. Commenting out awaits. And we're going to push, which means that you get to watch me enter a secret password. So, secret time. All right, secret password entered. Let's come back, and we're going to find out if our code ship thing is working. In the meantime, let's go to our Mongo environment and comment out those awaits. And let's see if we need it. So we got that one, and then we got this one. Okay, great. So let's go back and run our test. Let's run all, just to make sure nothing else randomly fails. Okay. Still working. Let's look at our code chip. That isn't our code chip. This is our code chip. Okay, let's find out. No, still doesn't work. Let's see what kind of error we're getting. Same error. Okay, that's not surprising, but is annoying. Okay, so let's push up our. Let's push our commenting out awaits in this file. No. Okay. Okay, secret time. Secret stuff happening. Gonna push the code and figure out if it's working. And, you know, hopefully get better at understanding why something is working or isn't working. You know what I mean? And I think that that's like the biggest thing. The biggest nice thing is like being able to like troubleshoot that. Okay, so let's see if, and this may not necessarily do anything. Hopefully it does, but hopefully it doesn't. And then we can kind of, if that doesn't necessarily do anything, I'm not going to Google it a ton. I'm either going to address it with my mentor or go to a Q&A. So one of the two. But I would like to get back to green. I like it when it's green. No, still failed. Okay. And it failed shorter this time. Alright, same error. Nothing new. Oh, that is unfortunate. Okay. Well then, let's ignore this for now. Let's see if we can find our store error. Okay. This is our state management. This should probably look familiar to you. We were doing it before. This is our index.js. And I think, so looking at it, the biggest issue is that I don't think our code currently handles this much. So right now it adds it to the database here, which, you know, is okay, but it's like, does this make sense? You know what I mean? And so I'm not sure where the business logic should go, but I think it's important just to write it and then get it to where it needs to be, if that makes sense. So let me see if I can explain. Okay, write it and then figure out where to put it. Actually, that should probably be a tweet. And I'm gonna say new tweet. And I'm gonna say sometimes it's important just to write it and then refactor. And then I could add hashtags, whatever, but screw it. Okay. There we go. Let's figure out what we're doing here. Okay, so what do we need? What sort of business logic do we need? So let's call this a const process request, process meal. I don't actually think that that's the kind of name that we should do. And we want to avoid using meal process user input is like maybe a potentially better name. And because we want to avoid meal this, meal that, meal this, meal that, you know, sort of thing. And because while it is a meal, it's kind of like one of those things where you want to avoid using it so you don't confuse people. Like, so actually, I think that should probably be a tweet too. So let's call up with Twitter again. And I should probably just keep Twitter up. And let me grab the restream chat too. And in a few minutes, I'm going to have to take a small break to go check on something I'm cooking. Okay. All right, so we're creating a tweet. Naming within an app tip. Don't overuse the title in your function names. It's confusing. Confusing. And we're going to say note to self. Actually, hashtag note to self. And then we're going to say hashtag web development. All right. Let's do it. Okay. All right, so what is process user input going to do? Okay, so let's kind of like comment out a thing. So let's do equals, and let's do this, and let's do a fat arrow, and then let's do that. And then let's do this. And then we're going to put that there. Nope. We're going to put this here. And ESLint doesn't like something. Unexpected token. What? Okay. Oh, I'm missing my fat arrow. Voila. Okay. Assigned a value and never used. Okay, so what are we trying to do here? We need, and we might not necessarily need, this may not necessarily be the entire function, but we need these, you know, sorts of ideas. Okay, so one thing, we need to check if a meal has a title. We need to check if a meal has an ingredient. What else do we need to do? well, for this, at least, we need to do that. We need to... Well, we could check. Check if meal title is a string. And then check if ingredient is a string. So this is starting to sound like a multiple set of functions, isn't it? This is starting to sound like 5 or 6 functions, right? Because if each one of these is like theoretically a function, I mean, though I guess we could bunch like the title and the ingredient, that sort of thing. Is a string, and then what else? Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of got to be what it is. Okay. So, let's close out Twitter and nothing on the chat. Good. Okay, so I don't know if this necessarily needs to be named process user input. So let's take in input. Let's just say input here. And then we're going to so we're going to say let's create a separate function. And we're going to say string check or string check equals might be a string. Okay, and then we're going to say if might be a string, equals, I guess we have to use like some sort of type of. So we're going to comment and say type of equals string, then return might be a string. And then we're going to say else return error. Not not a string. And then we're going to say might be a string is not a string. And then, yeah, it doesn't like my else block. Declaration or statement expected. Okay. And we're going to call this pseudocode because this is not exactly like, I don't know if this is exactly how this works, but it ought to, this is what I would say, this is what I would do if it worked, you know, sort of thing. Okay, so we've got our string check vaguely. So let's create, no, actually it is close to time for me to go check my cooking. So I will be back in a few moments. 5-minute break. Okay, I'm back. All right, so last time, well, you were there, hopefully. So we were creating this string check. So next up, we want to create something that would validate that it has a title, or it has a title, and or maybe validate that it has an ingredient. So let's see if we can make this happen, shall we? Okay. And all right. So let's say const has ingredient equals I don't want to say value. Input might work. But I don't necessarily want to shadow any other variables. So might be user content equal fat arrow, and then we're gonna say okay, and then we're gonna say if user content so contains, we're just going to put contains in there, and then we can figure out what that looks like. Okay, actually dot title it does not equal undefined. Then return user content. Great. Awesome. Though it doesn't like my semicolon. Else, and it could be try catch, I guess. But it's not quite an error, I think. So let me put a comment and say, should this be a try-catch block? Actually, let me put it up above. Try and catch block instead of an if else. Okay. So next, oh, I have a mismatch. Let's say has title and ingredient. Okay, so let's say and user content dot ingredients does not equal undefined. Else, now one of the things I kind of wonder is, since we're checking for a string, do we need this? So let's return our console error, and then we're going to ask that question too. User content. Needs to be entered, and then let's do that. Okay, maybe not necessarily the most immediate thing. Okay, so let's run input through the paces, shall we? Okay, so let's call has title and ingredient input, and then we're gonna say okay, so and then we're gonna say dot then. We're gonna use a promise here. And then we're going to say string check input. And then I'm not sure if we should use a dot then for the rest of it. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily... Okay, so, and then what it should do... Okay. Well, that's... I mean, this does everything that we needed to do. And then maybe we should dot then return input. I'm not sure if that's necessarily how we should do it, but it's at least that's what I would expect. So I processed it. Actually, technically it validated it. So let's change the function name. Validate user input. And then what we should do probably is we should... All good questions. Okay. What we probably should do at this point is clean up our code. Okay. Right. Okay. So this is what I mean by clean up our code. Let's actually make it be able to runnable. Okay, so let's look up what type of does first. We're gonna create a whole new tab of set. All right, type of. JavaScript, because I actually don't know if I've used type of before. All right, let's do this thing. Oh, okay. Great. Okay. So let's do this. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, string check looks good. So it sounds like at this point, all I need to do is figure out my promises and figure out my chaining of things. Because I want one to run and then the other. And I'm not sure if I need promises to do that. So I'm kind of thinking that this is a functional programming composition thing. Okay. Okay, so this is kind of what we should be doing. Okay, so let's see if we can understand this. Let's zoom in. Actually, let's view raw. I like this plan. Though I don't like the font that Firefox is using, so we're gonna put this over here. And let's zoom in. Okay, var resolve equals unit. Okay. Okay, so let's see if we can find... Let's do a search on promise.resolve. Because like that article sounds good, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily what I need to do. Oh. Okay. So we're going to say promise.resolve. I'm not sure if this is how we should be using it. Oh, right. Well, damn. Okay. Let's run some tests. Or let's check our tests, actually. Let's not even run our tests. Okay. It looks like our tests are still doing what they need to be doing. I mean, the only other thing I could think of is that we need to write tests for these things. But before we do that, let's commit this. First, business logic draft. Validation of user input. Okay. Well then. Okay, so let's find out do I need this and the string? Check. Okay, cool. Okay, so the next thing we need to probably do. Theoretically, it does all this, so let's clean that up. So we need to write tests, and then, so we need to do two things. One, we can make a to-do list in the code. One, write tests for the above. And then two, we need to write something that will convert user input into what is needed by the database. What else do we need to do? I mean, it's a lot to do, but let's correct our spelling here. And then I guess okay, so let's talk this through. Business logic is add a meal. A meal is a title and an ingredient or ingredients. So it's going to add a meal. So the user enters like ingredients or ingredient, and then the user sends that to me. I check to see if it's a string, if it's not undefined. I check to see if I format it for the database. I send it over to the database, and then it gets displayed back to the user most likely. I think that's it. At least for this user story. Okay. I'm glad somebody likes my tweets. All right. I think we're done with that. Okay, so let's work on the convert user input. Const convert user data. Convert data into DB format. Because right now it's rec.body. It's the request. Because, you know. So, okay. Okay, so let's see here. I'm not sure what this is. I mean, okay, so let's kind of let's comment out some requirements for this app. All right, requirements. Take input and you convert it into, and what the hell is our database expecting? An object with a key with name and ingredients as an array. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's pass in validate user input, and then we're gonna pass in user data. Okay. Validate user input on user data, and then dot then, and I don't know whether or not we necessarily should use a dot then, but oh, okay, let's do a constant. Formatted data is, okay, equals an object. No, I need that. Formatted data dot meal dot name is equal to user data oh, guess what? Need to do this for each value of the request body. Okay. Let's just say user data dot name and then equals request data dot name. Okay, great. And then what we do is we do on user data dot ingredients and then we do dot then. And then let's do ingredients equals this. Formatted data dot ingredients dot push and this sets us up to map this so that we don't have to worry too much about like how many ingredient, you know, how we're storing it, that sort of thing. Okay, so then, and we're going to return user data. It does a lot. But it really only does like one thing. Actually, no, it should return formatted data. Okay. That's not too bad. Let's save it and commit it. And I'm going to sign off so that I can be a little bit more prepared for my meeting in 5 minutes. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say, first version of DB formatting of data formatting for DB. And I'm not sure if, maybe I made a mistake and maybe this isn't needed or something, but it helps to do it regardless, I think. All right. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this stream. And you should look for me streaming over the weekend.